Hey, Norm. Yep, George Wendt, interviewed on Later, March 19th, 1991. Tom Snyder guest hosting for Bob Costas. And Wendt was out promoting his film Guilty by Suspicion about blacklisting in the entertainment world. Robert DeNiro was the co-star, or the star of the movie. I guess George would be the co-star. So Wendt recounts his evolution from Second City in Chicago to becoming Norm.
Thank you for staying up later. I'm Tom Snyder for Bob Costas all this week, and joining us tonight is George Wendt, who happily or unhappily is known throughout the country. Look at the smile on his face from this, as Norm on the enormously popular television program Cheers, and who is also one of the stars of a brand new motion picture which is out now, which is called Guilty by Suspicion, in which he stars with Robert De Niro, which we'll talk about. The Norm thing and the Cheers thing, I don't know if people know this, but you almost weren't Norm. You almost wound up being a coach on a different program called Making the Grade,
right,
which, had it made it, would have occupied your time and somebody else would be Norm now.
Yeah.
What happened there? You were involved with Making the Grade. How did you get to Cheers?
There was a role of a guy who was Shelley Long's first customer, Diane's first customer, and she gives a big long spiel apologizing about how she's really a student and really much too good to be a barmaid. But she's here for the time being and all these circumstances, and the guy just sits there and listens, and then she says, "What would you like?" And he says, "Beer." And that was it. So the one word, beer, was just too small to read for the producers to get a feel for whether or not, they wanted to hire you.
Right.
So they had me read this role of George, which turned out to be Norm. So I read that, and they decided that they had to make it work out.
The jobs that you've had on Cheers, there was one episode that's notable among the fans of the show, where you fire somebody, and you are then chosen to be the hatchet man.
Yeah. It's probably my favorite Norm story. It was written by Heidi Perlman, Rhea's sister, and they saw me. The guy was just such a sweet guy that I had to fire, and I burst into tears when I fired him. And they had a guy watching me, and they said, "A hatchet man with a conscience. That's what we need. That's what this corporation needs." So I had to fire everybody, and as soon as they found out Norm Peterson wants to have a beer with you, they started clearing out their desks.
Right.
I'd bring them into Cheers and burst into tears, and it was pretty funny.
Before there was Norm, and before there was anything else in Hollywood, there was George Wendt, kid in Chicago.
Right.
Growing up in what I assume was a normal Middle Western family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Went to school and was told, if you go to school and get a good job, you'll share in the American dream. What was that dream for you as a kid?
No idea. I really had no clue as to what I wanted to do. It didn't dawn on me until I was about 22 or 23. 23.
And so your college career, what there was of it.
Yeah, was really pathetic.
You're one of the only people I know who's ever had a 0-point grade average, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't cumulative, but it was for my first semester.
When it's zero, pal, it doesn't make any difference. How do you get a 0 grade point?
You don't go to any classes, or you don't go to any exams. You sort of drop out without going through the motions officially.
And where did you achieve this notoriety?
University of Notre Dame.
And you were paying tuition?
No, my dad was.
Your dad was, right, yeah. To achieve it. And was there a conversation at all about a 0-point grade average?
Yeah, there was. It was an icky conversation.
I hate to break it to you at this tender age, but you're supposed to go to class.
It's so much easier that way, too. I mean, the homework, the exams.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, simple, little thing, little adjustment.
And you finally got your degree from Rockhurst.
Yeah.
And you went back to Chicago.
Right.
And wound up somehow in Second City.
Well, what I did was I made up my mind that really through the process of elimination, do I want to be a cowboy, a fireman? No, a teacher, a scientist, a doctor, out of the question. So I said, well, one thing I know I wouldn't hate would be to go to Second City, and I'd gone there in college a few times, and it looks for all the world like, 5 or 6 people just goofing off and having fun. And, I was pretty sure they were paid. And so I knew I wouldn't hate that. And I got back finally after the money ran out the last time, and that was '73, I guess. And just went to the box office and said, I inquired about their workshops, and they said, well, we have one starting in about 6 weeks. Give us your address, and we'll send you
the brochure.
Yeah, and that's it. He pays your money, and $85 for 13 weeks,
and you go to the workshops, and,
Yeah.
and something must happen in there to convince you that this is going to be okay for George.
Well, I had a good teacher, and she was kind enough to not give any horrible negative feedback in the first several weeks, and by then I was probably hooked. I mean, it was a great deal of fun. I applied myself,
And once you get into Second City, do Mom and Dad come and see the show?
Yeah.
And your family?
Yeah.
And how do they like it? How do they like their guy George up there?
They like it. They're happy. I'm happy. They're happy. That's all they cared about, was that I was happy and successful, probably. Successful in terms of it reflecting on the family, but successful for, on my own terms, too.
Yeah, because in the family, talk about the guy in your family. Is it your grandfather who was the journalist?
Right. He was a press photographer in the heyday of the medium, and his most famous photo is his name was Tom Howard, and his most famous photo was I think in April of 1929. Ruth Snyder was electrocuted, the first woman to be electrocuted in the United States, and he got a photo of her frying in the electric chair. And it was.
I mean, I don't want to laugh about that.
It was either the zenith or the nadir of yellow journalism, depending on your point of view. And it was the front page of the New York Daily News. And
oh, that photograph
banner
today is
headlines.
still published.
Yeah, it's in all the books. Yeah.
And how did he manage to do that?
Well, the way I understood it, he was.
I mean, they take old Ruth then and sit her down.
Yeah, and apparently the Sing Sing guards knew all the New York photographers, so they wouldn't let him in because there was never a photograph of an execution, or at least an electrocution. And so they brought my grandfather. I wish I had the facts, but they brought him from either Detroit or Chicago, where he was working at the time, and he got up into they built a little camera that he would strap around his ankle.
Okay.
And I think he made like a 90-second exposure. It was really
Well, it wasn't
ancient.
much longer than that, I can tell you.
Yeah. And so he just sort of lifted up his pant leg, or he was dressed like a priest, I'm not sure which, and a cassock.
The story I recall is he had a clerical outfit of some kind,
yeah.
a priest, minister.
I mean, he lifted up the cassock and let the exposure go, and out they went, and it was very front page, hustled into one car, and the plate hustled into another car and hit the presses, and he was sort of a legend ever since. He wound up being, when he retired, he was a photo editor of the Chicago Sun-Times.
So there's a little journalism in the George Wendt background
Yeah,
as well.
that's actually one field that I probably could have enjoyed, was journalism. I spent a summer as a copy boy at the Chicago Daily News, the late, great Chicago Daily News. And that was a pretty interesting summer.
And did the bug ever bite to go out to cover the stories, go to the fires, chase the police cars?
Yeah, it did, actually, but not hard enough. I was just so shiftless. The subsequent summer, most of the go-getters, the Type A's, were nailing down their summer jobs, in February or something. And I just sort of, I don't know what I was thinking, nothing. I sort of rolled home in June and, laid around for a couple weeks, and everyone said, get a job, go back down to the Daily News. And I went down there, and they told me to get lost, and I said, well, but my grandfather. And they go, hey, get out of here. And they didn't want to hear about my grandfather. They wanted to hear that I wanted to be the best damn journalist this city ever had. And
yeah, don't you love it when you go in and apply for a job and they say, now, why do you want to work here?
I know.
You've got to give the correct answer.
Well, I went to this guy, the editor-in-chief, whatever, the grand poobah of the place, and he literally laid that question on me. He was very gruff, and he knew I was just, that I didn't really have the drive at the time to I didn't have what it takes. So he said, why should I hire you? You tell me why I should hire you. And I was so clueless, I went, because my grandfather used to work here. He said, get out of here. And they sent me over to the City News Bureau, which is even a more tough place. It's the place where all the Cub reporters, you know, really made their bones for decades. And I interrupt some guy. Excuse me, I'd like to apply for a job. They sent me over here from the Daily News. Yeah. Here's an application. Go ahead and fill it out. There's a typewriter over there. Anybody got a pen? I don't type. Get out of here! So I went to the train station to take the train back out to my house on the south side, my parents' house, and I stopped in the bar in the train station, had a beer, and thought, God, if I could only do this for a living, you know, just sit here and have a beer, that'd be great, you know.
And it all came true for you, didn't it, huh?
Yeah, God is good.
Well, I wanna get a Cadillac 'cause I can't afford to buy one. Never drove no Mercury and I don't intend to try one. I just take my LTD and blow a tune up every 50,000 miles. It seems like my way of thinking don't clean out of style. I'm a smoking sense of Miller on the roof of my apartment. Neighbor girl smells something burning. She called the fire department. Got my name in the local papers and my fingerprints in a Metro police file. It seemed like my way of thinking don't clean out of style. Took a trip to Europe just to find out what was doing. Saw the Eiffel Tower and the Buckingham Gardens and the ancient Roman ruins. But the whole time I was longing just to see old Lady Liberty flash a smile. Seemed like my way of thinking don't clean out of style. Flying on back from London.
How about the Second City audiences? They're used to seeing the performers, and now they see George Wendt. Is he an enormous hit right off the bat?
No, far from it.
Really?
Yeah. I would, you know, I wasn't totally without success, but I was a pretty lousy improviser, and the improv sets were really scary. And I was actually booed off the stage once.
Get out of here.
Totally, and that's what they said. I swear to God, they did. They said, get off the stage! Because we have all these little sort of heckler retorts that we can use to try, you know, for
To
people
quiet the crowd,
quiet the
right.
crowd. They weren't having it. It was one group of about 8 people, and that's pretty good. You know, they can be really vociferous.
Very
8
loud,
people,
yeah.
In a crowd of
25 or
300
30, 300, right.
And they just wouldn't let us go on. They just kept going, boo, get off the stage, you're boring people. I didn't know if we were boring people or if we were boring people. But I suppose the two go hand in hand.
I think it was probably the former, yeah. Do you recall at all what the sketch or the improv?
Yeah, it was tasteless. It was priests and nuns and, you know, sexual situations.
Not a good idea.
It was icky. It was a tasteless scene. And
it was boring.
They were absolutely right. Well, it wasn't entirely boring, but...
What about, you mentioned that you've been given some lines to quell the noise, heckler put-downs. What, do you recall those? What they were?
Well, but let's see, there'd be a boo or something. We'd walk out downstage and you know, close an imaginary. Everything was mimed at Second City. You know,
Right.
we weren't big mimes, but there weren't any props or set dressing. We'd mime a window and go, oh, those neighbors are at it again. You know.
Boy, that'd
pretty
quiet
lame.
me down right away if I were... No wonder
lame.
they said, get out of here.
Yeah, there's
Somebody
one
said...
good one, though. This guy used to put his feet... There were cocktail tables right up to the stage, right? And so every now and then some clown would put his feet up on stage.
Yeah.
And our piano player, Fred Kaz, gave me this one. He said, just walk up to the guy in the middle of the scene and go, excuse me, do you put your feet on the stage at home?
Get off the stage. And was that was probably the only time that's ever happened?
What, booed off stage?
Yep.
Yeah, it was. And
how does being booed off the stage help the confidence of a guy, George Wendt, who, based upon my limited observations, I would say is precarious at confidence to begin with, and who needs reassurance?
Yeah.
Huh?
It was tough. I walked off the stage and I was really getting my hat and coat. I was going to like walk right out of the theater and out of the business. And Bernard Salins, our producer director at the time, burst backstage. He said, "You affected those people. Get back up there. You affected those people. They were uncomfortable with that material." And anyone would be, but he was trying to he was just trying to pump us up, and so I did, press on, and I didn't fold up my tent completely. But I think I think every performer should be booed off stage at least once, just to gain some sort of perspective on your career.
It's good leveler, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really makes you examine why you're in the business and should you go on and things like that.
When you get to pictures, as I mentioned, you're in this picture now with Robert De Niro, Guilty by Suspicion. A story that has serious overtones because it goes back to a time of blacklisting, when everybody was suspected, or not everybody, but a lot of people were suspected of being communists. And you play Robert De Niro's friend. Yeah.
I'm a screenwriter. He's a very, very successful director who gets blacklisted as the movie begins, and the movie charts his home life and his professional life as it just completely unravels for him. And I'm a best friend, a screenwriter, and I don't quite get it. I'm not as successful as him, but one of the reasons he gets blacklisted, he refuses to name me, and he warns me that they're coming after me next because they know that I've been involved somehow, and I deny.
What should I see a lawyer for? I start having meetings start rumors. Next thing you know, they will call me.
They're gonna call you. The guy asked me about you. The same thing that happened to me is gonna happen to you.
No, it won't.
Do directors have to draw you out?
Yeah, they do.
How do they do it? And are there any right around here somewhere?
That's funny.
And you know what I mean, don't you?
Yes, I do, of course.
Yeah.
Well, Bernie Salins had it all wrong, our director, producer at Second City. He used to say, more energy, more energy. And it's not exactly that. Maybe he's right. Maybe it is more energy. I don't know. But it's tough to get me to come alive. I don't know why.
But you come alive in a very quiet way. You know, there'll be a little smile now and again.
Yeah.
Maybe every 5 or 10 years you'll wink at the camera just to let people know that you're hip to the joke. But you are a low-energy actor.
Yeah, I hope that serves me well. There's a crying need for low-energy actors out there.
So far. Is it studied, or is that George Wendt?
I've always felt that that my look was sort of goofy and over the top, and so I always really played against it because I didn't want to be just another, sort of, big, fat, crass, loudmouth, buffoon-y kind of guy, I thought I'd rather be a big, fat, soft-spoken guy.
Is that how you see yourself?
Yeah.
And in the commercial acting you did, that was very quiet. It was almost one expression in the commercials you did for the package delivery service, and what other ones? You did oil company.
Yeah, I did about 20 or 30 spots with Chicago commercial filmmaker Joe Settlemeyer, and he's notorious for getting people with goofy looks, and just kind of, I never said a word practically in the whole lot of time I spent with him. I just opened my mouth. He'd say, "Now open your mouth. Now just a little wider. Just a little wider.
A little wider.
Now don't go comatose on me." And then I'd have to close it. Okay. He was a funny guy. Good commercials. Very effective.
Federal Express is so easy to use, you can do it in your sleep.
Hello, General.
So let me see the look one more time. There it is. a medley of the looks of George Wendt.
It's a smorgasbord.
We've been talking with George Wendt, who can currently be seen and guilty by suspicion. For Bob Costas, I'm Tom Snyder. Sleep tight, America.